If you can master floating and clearing, I think you're going to be in excellent shape for any direction you decide to go in as a web developer, quite honestly. And so we have a bunch of review exercises to help you practice floating and clearing, because a lot happened last week in the Kevin Bacon example. Take a look inside your Week 11 lab folder and find the floating review exercises folder, and we're going to start in the first one, floating and clearing. There's a picture of what we're trying to achieve, and then you can load up the HTML file in the browser to see what we're currently achieving, which is this. So we have some things to do. As usual, I like to work with the big chunks of the page first and then deal with the smaller chunks afterwards. Find it easier to work that way. So what I can see by looking at the big chunks of the page is not really anything, nothing has to change up here at the header. It goes all the way across, and it does here too, so that looks fine. The rest of the page looks like we have a 50-50 split between this content and then the blue stuff, which starts with lorem ipsum. So I'm going to get that into gear first. This says I can add divs to the file, and the instructions that we gave you said you're also allowed to add the class of clearfix if you need it. So let's get going. First of all, I need to set up with a style sheet. We don't have a normalized style sheet in here. I'm not going to add one here because there's a couple things that will be revealed if I don't add a normalized style sheet. Just that will be a good review, I think. So I'm going to right click somewhere in here and add myself a style sheet, style.css, and then I'm going to link it into my index page, which is floating practice, right where it says to. Style.css. And the previous link has the old XHTML syntax for empty tags, which is to put a trailing slash before this angle bracket. It's optional now in HTML5. Okay, here's the style file. Let's do, I'm going to go pick up that clearfix from a previous week and just paste it in. Here it was. Copy. Oh, actually, the border box is also helpful, so we'll take that. And paste into my styles. Okay. Now I'm going to look at the big chunks of the page. Inside the HTML file, this is a pretty short HTML file, so I'm just going to highlight what I see. So everything from this paragraph down to here should be on the left. And then everything from here to here should be on the right. So I'm going to add divs around those to make my life easier. Container. And maybe I'll edit them left and right. And I'm just going to class then something like content. I may not use this class at all right now today, but if I'm just having an idea that maybe it will be helpful to have a similar class on both of them. Div ID equals left, class equals content. Here. Okay, I'm going to quickly hit the beautify button to get my indents right, and now I have two IDs with which to style. So I am going to do that in the style sheet. And I'm going to say that each one gets to be 50% of the page because that's what it looks like. Left and right, or in this case, they're both classed with the same thing, so I could also write just as easily. I could say dot content. If it's a content section, it gets to be 50% of the page. So that will also be fine. Reason to use my class that I just put on there. I'm not putting a pixel width here. I could absolutely do that. Just like we did with the Kevin Bacon example last week, I could put an overall pixel width on the whole page and then do the math to determine what the 50-50 split is. But we're heading into relative layouts this week, so let's warm up with that by putting in a percentage width. And let's see how I'm doing so far. So that's good, because they're both now the right size, taking up halfway across. And now I'd like to get them side by side. And last week we discovered that we did that using float. So I'm going to float them both to the side. And in this case, I could float the top one left and the bottom one right. Or I can float them both left. It doesn't really matter because there's 50% each, so nothing below them is ever going to be able to float up to the middle. But if there was something below these blue paragraphs, and these upper two areas were skinnier than, and so there was space, say, in the middle between them, if I had floated one to the left and the other one to the right, the next content would flow up through the middle of them. In this class, we probably don't have to deal with layouts of that nature, but just to let you know that's what would happen. So I'm going to go ahead and float them. Actually, I'm going to continue my rule here and just float them both to the left. In this case, it doesn't matter if they're both floating in the same direction. We just want them to line up next to each other and they reach 50%. Okay, so far so good. So now I need some space in between them. If I'm looking at my mock-up, it should look like this. How big is the overall width is almost 900 wide. This is about 100, so 50 each. 900, and if I want 50 pixels, roughly 10% in the middle here. A little bit more than, or a little bit less than 10% actually, because we're dealing with a 900 pixel width layout. But if I made each one of these 5% and 5%, I would be pretty close. So I'm going to decide that that's fine. Let's do it. So on the left, I'm going to say on the, actually we'll use padding because I'm using width. Padding right will be 5% of my overall width-ish, and the right-hand side will be, really what we're looking for is, can you adjust the padding inside these boxes to give some kind of result roughly like the mockup. So that's looking good. So now I've got the big chunks of the page. In the following video, we will take a look at wrangling the nav and then these promo logo and promo photo.